17th, 2017. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thanks for everyone for not kneeling. Okay. Roll call, please.
Liz Smith,
Present.
Andrea Voorhees,
Present.
Mike Powell. Here. Mr. Ruggles is absent. Mike Roman.
Here.
Mr. Lilly is here. Mr. Kowal.
Here.
6 members present, sir.
Looking forward approval of the agenda.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make the following recommendations or changes to the agenda. One would be a new list of bills dated 10/17/17. I believe all you have a copy at your desk. I'd like to entertain having an executive session tonight. The language for the executive session would be a motion to enter into closed session to consider attorney-client privileged communication in accordance to MCL 15268H.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I'm sorry, go ahead. Beg your pardon.
Also, after executive session, we'll be discussing 3 additional items after we go back into general session after executive. And those items would be employee union contract would be the first item. The second one would be the non-union elected official wage resolution. And the third one will be policy and procedure amendments having to do with changes in the employee union contract. Also, I believe that you all have a copy of the updated treasurer's report. And I'd just like to mention again that if you are in attendance tonight and want your name on the attendance sheet, you're welcome to sign. And for those that would like to speak during public comment, if you would please sign in and check the box on the sign-in sheet. Rick can use those to call on everybody. So if you would make sure you check in if you want to do public comment. Mr. Supervisor, I believe that those are the only items for discussion.
Okay.
To make a
Just
motion.
to clarify, 14 would be, or do you, employee union, or do you want 14, 15, 16 agenda items? You guys said 3 after.
It's like
executive.
A, B, and
Those
C.
would be, after
Okay.
trustee comments would be executive session, and then items A, B, and C as
Okay.
after we return to general session.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. You have a motion for the changes. Looking for support? Support. A motion, support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you. Now we move on to public comment. This is generally a time when there's any to bring forth something, a concern or question that you may have in particular that you'd like to enlighten the board about or the community about. You'll have 3 minutes to do so. We ask that you state your name and address for the record. And generally, again, this is not for items that are typically on the agenda, because usually on the agenda, if we have a crossroad, we usually let the public have their comment on that at that point. So do I have anything from the public at this time?
Want to grab the sheet? Rick?
Oh, yeah, I will need that sheet too. Are you on that sheet too? Okay. No problem.
The sheet is still going around.
Beg your pardon?
The sheet's getting
Oh,
circulated.
it's still, yeah. I don't know where they did.
Testing, does that work? Okay. My name is Dr. Sharon Lynn Karanen. I live in White Lake Township. And I understand there are students here who are in a political science class, apparently, or civics, whatever it might be. I happen to teach political science, and I'm talking about the library. And my concern with the library is this. It might make a perfect public policy case management study on what not to do, because there's a cost overrun. And these are really concerns when you talk about the constituents who have given our public trust to public officials on these are the monies that will be spent for the library. And as a professor, I love libraries. I voted for the library, and I'm all for it. But the concern is a little bit of a cost overrun right now. It's going to escalate. It never gets better. It gets worse. That's number one. Number two, I think as students here, and I'm glad to see the students here, you have to learn fiscal responsibility early on. And this would be a good piece to add to whatever you're writing up for your class, because this is what you don't do. You don't want cost overruns. You lose public trust with constituents. And we're here because we trust you. So please, at least follow through, not only for us, but also to teach the students of the future of White Lake.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else at this time?
My name's Dennis Feems, and I live at 9095 Satellite in White Lake Township. And I'd like to say I'm grateful for the progress the Township Board and the Library Board seem to be making towards the realization of a modern, suitable new facility for the library. This new building, possibly the beginning of a Township campus, will be a major asset to our community. I think it would be appropriate, therefore, for the Township to consider positively sharing the cost of the water line to that site, because ultimately that water line will be used by the township as it expands its facilities there. I thank those of you who made this possible, and I urge you to proceed to issuing the bonds at the earliest practicable date. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Going once? Going twice? Okay, moving along. We are moving to the consent agenda. Mr. Clerk?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the addition of the new list of bills dated 10/17/17, and also the treasurer's report.
And the treasurer's report is that single document. Thank you.
I'll support.
We have motion, we have support. Mr. Powell?
Under discussion, just because we have so many young people here, this is part of the agenda where it's ongoing business that we do every day and every meeting. And so therefore, instead of us going through a long list of bills and dealing with the mundane practice of summarizing all of that, we're able to approve a bunch of things all at once called consent agenda. And under that consent agenda, we have a list of bills that the township has to pay, revenue expense reports, check disbursements, budget amendments, department reports from the police, fire, community development, and treasurer. So all of those things are items that would put most of us to sleep if we were just go through them all the time. So we're able to pass them off in just one motion. Thank you.
Very well put. Okay. So in other words, it's the light bill, the gas bill, the insurance bill, all of the above, those
Right.
types of things. So that's part of what we do. We have motion, we have support. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you. Item number 7, the minutes. Approval of minutes at the canceled regular board meeting September 19th, 2017. Would you like us to do these individually, Counselor? We should do this on this particular.
Yeah, the meeting minutes.
Yeah. So approval of the minutes of the canceled regular board meeting September 19th, 2017. Looking for a motion?
Motion, Mr. Supervisor, to approve the board minutes for the September 19th meeting that was canceled.
Thank you. Motion and support? Motion and support by Andrea. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, ayes have it. Minutes for the Board of Trustees special meeting September 26, 2017. Looking for a motion? I have a motion.
Motion, Mr. Supervisor, to approve the board minutes from the September 26th board meeting.
Very good.
Make the support again.
I have motion and support by Andrea again. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Item C, approval of the minutes of rescheduled regular board meeting September 28th.
Mr. Supervisor, I move approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting on September 28th.
I have motion. Looking for support?
Support.
I have support from Mr. Early.
Under
Thank you.
discussion?
Yes, discussion.
I really wanted to thank Amy Burton. She did an amazing job catching and gathering everyone's comments. So thank you, Amy.
No, it was a very productive meeting. It was a
Yes.
very good meeting, and Amy did a great job, as she did. Okay, we have motion, we have support. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Moving on to item 8, resolutions. Resolution 8 is a resolution that pertains to the Department of Transportation is there allows for annual permits for operation of fall within the state highway right-of-way. Our current resolution is in effect through December 31st, 2017. The approved resolution will serve as an annual permit and be effective until January 1, 2018.
Something doesn't seem
That
right.
doesn't sound right.
It's a
2019.
year off is
Yeah.
what it is.
That's 2019. There's a correction right there for you. Activities under routine service and maintenance are allowed under this permit, as well as emergency repairs. However, MDOT will require the agency to submit an electronic notice of work. Individual permits are required for all proposed operations not covered under the annual permit. In addition, municipalities are exempt from permit fees when working within their municipal limits. Basically, what this boils down to is that even as a government, we have to abide by rules and regulations from other branches of government so that we don't get in trouble. And this is for the Department of Transportation. So if someone says, well, geez, just go out there and fix something on the side of N59, you can't do it without a permit. Okay? So these are the things that we as a township have to do. If we have a sewer hookup, a water main break, an issue that will require us to work within their right-of-way or within the road, we have to have that permit. This gives us a blanket kind of a permit that all we have to do is notify them of work, and there's a little bit more to it than that. So, yes, sir.
I think it was okay the way it was worded with the 18.
You sure?
Yeah, I think that's
Oh,
when it
effective.
starts.
I'm sorry. I beg your pardon.
Oh, thank you, yes.
Boy, we're both slipping, Mike.
Yep,
That's why we got 7.
That's right.
yes.
You're right. I was, okay, I beg your pardon. You stand corrected. You looking for a motion? Any questions?
I'll make the motion to approve Resolution 17-038.
I have a motion.
Go ahead,
Support from
Mr.
Andrew
Powell.
down here. Motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Motion passes. Resolution 8B, Resolution 17-039, 2018 General Appropriations Act. Mr. Lilly, anything you'd like to add? You want to touch on this?
Sure. The General Appropriations Act basically outlines the estimated revenues and expenditures for the township for the year 2018. So I'll make a motion to approve
Make a motion to approve.
the 2018 General Appropriations Act.
Motion, looking for support?
Support.
Motion support, Mr. Powell.
How can I ask this roundabout? Do all governmental agencies need to adopt something like this?
Yes.
I'll stop there, thank you.
Okay, very good. Okay, we have motion with support. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Motion passes. New business, 2018 budget approval. We had discussion at a budget workshop meeting and have had multiple discussions on the budget and trying to make sure that it will be a balanced budget. And the only thing that I can see that I would like to make a change on was in the building department, where we had on page 14 of 19, under the building department expenditures, we would go from taking the guesstimated overtime of 20,000, and we would move that up to salaries for part-time for 20,000. That would hopefully take care of us in that department, because things have gotten much busier because of all the development and things that are happening in our community. So, any questions or comments from the board?
Before a motion to approve, Mr. Supervisor, certainly there have been some minor changes made based upon our discussions and discussion from the public. One item that caught my attention, and you'll know why in just a minute, on page 13 of 19, under the police expenditures, line item 000, youth services. We had a $4,000 budget last year for youth services. We originally had in our discussions a $1,000 in the 2018 budget, and it's been reduced to 0. And my suggestion and my hope was that we could have put $4,000 to $5,000 in there for Huron Valley Youth Assistance. And I believe I provided at least the in-house staff, I don't know if I provided it to the rest of the trustees, a letter from the Oakland County court system that the courts themselves actually donate to the Huron Valley Youth Assistance, as well as many other communities. And I think since the vast majority of the people, vast majority of the young people treated and helped in that organization comes from White Lake Township, it would be great if we could help support them.
Understood. We have had some question on that, and I've turned it over to council for some research on that at one point. And we're still not quite sure of that actual expenditure, whether that's something. I understand that there has been some documentation produced. I'm not sure exactly where we stand in that research at this moment in time. Counselor?
Well, I mean, I have taken the position that is an expenditure that's not permitted. I did see the correspondence provided by a staff member at the courthouse that seems to indicate otherwise. But I did reach out to Referee Bilson to get more information, and we had a conversation, and he was going to look into that letter and get back to me, and I have not heard back from him yet.
Well, we can always make a budget amendment, as you all know.
Or we can make that change now, so we don't have to make a budget amendment. Whether we spend it or not, it doesn't matter.
That's true, but that's also out of the police department's budget, and I think the chief might have some input on that. So, chief?
Historically, that has been in our budget. We have, as far back as I can, as I looked, we have never given the Huron Valley Youth Assistance. The township has. In their budget, they've given it. It's been in our budget. I don't know why it was put in our budget. We have never given Huron Valley Youth Assistance money from the police department budget.
It's my understanding that that organization, that young people are referred by the police department to that organization, and yet we don't support that organization then. All we do is send them there and don't do any supporting of that group then.
The township could support them through their budget. We have never, just historically, the police department has never given them money for that organization.
You know, Mr. Powell, just so you know, there has been funds that have gone through them over the years from the Community Block Grant Program. So money has come from that.
And I'm aware of that, and other communities have done the same thing, but the monies through there are only allowed to be used for certain items.
Correct.
And not for other expenditures or other costs. And so it's just my suggestion that we step up and help this organization, but it's obviously if there's no other interest in doing that, then I'm only one vote.
I don't think there isn't an interest in helping. I think we just want to make sure we go about it the right way so that there's no issue. So I will be happy to carry the torch on that for you, and you and I can talk about this a little bit later. I'll be more than happy to support a budget amendment. I'll also be happy to look and see just exactly where this decision will play out with the referee, and we'll kind of know where we stand.
Certainly as we go through, it's just going to be a question as to who is going to have a problem with the township donating like the other townships do, and the court system itself donates.
Right.
And so it'd be very tough, be very unusual for the public then to say, why are we supporting this youth assistance? So
I
that's my
understand.
position. Okay.
I understand. Thank you. I appreciate it. Any other questions on the budget?
I will
Miss-
be in favor of looking at a budget amendment later.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
Ms.
Mike,
Smith.
I am as well. I'll make a motion to approve the budget as amended on page 14.
Okay, we have a motion to approve 9A, the 2018 budget with amendment. Motion on the floor, looking for support.
I'll support that.
I have support from Andy Voorhees. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item 9B, rezoning request from AG to SF. AG is agricultural, SF is suburban farms. for 1250 Doe Lane. Mr.
Only-
Sean,
If only they were all so straightforward. This is really loud. Okay, this is a pretty basic and straightforward request. This was at the Planning Commission on October 5th. After a public hearing, they recommended approval of the proposed rezoning of parcel 12-21-201-004, which is also known as 1250 Doe Lane. It's currently zoned Ag, AG, and they wish to rezone it to Suburban Farms, SF, so 5-acre minimums to 2-acre minimums. The applicants are Mr. and Mrs. Seward and their son. They're here tonight. After the review, which you'll see in your packet, the recommendation was that the Planning Commission recommend to you folks the rezoning because the requested Suburban Farm zoning district is consistent with the master plan and future land use map. Because rezoning the parcel to Suburban Farm is compatible with the character of the surrounding area, and finally because rezoning the parcel to Suburban Farms will not result in a spot zoning. Behind you and behind me, there is a map. It's going to look better on the TV than on the screen, but in blue, this is the back of the public hearing notice that went out to everyone within 300 feet. Here's Doe Lane. They're single-family homes, and I don't know the exact size, but I believe they're zoned R1C. This is the 10.1 acre parcel. There's a panhandle, it's about 20 feet wide, that goes out to Porter Road. There's currently a rezoning sign here and over here. The Sewards, currently a family member resides. I think Mr. Nick Seward lives in this home with his family, and Mr. and Mrs. Seward wish to divide several acres off the back of this 10-acre parcel to build a second home back here. So per our ordinance, they would have to extend Doe Lane, and I think they wish to do that as a private road in far enough to get the required road frontage on a Suburban Farms parcel. And so they're going to need 165 feet of road frontage in order to do that. This is not something that's done through a board or commission. This is all done administratively through our office and the assessing office. It's a simple land division, but the private roads are necessary to achieve the requirements of zoning ordinance. And I'm telling you just simply to say that some of the people who called were very concerned about what would happen on this parcel. We heard 15 different things that were not truly being proposed, but I think when the folks on Doe Lane came to find out that this will be 2 homes and not, you know, multiple homes and multiple development.
I mean, they're not drilling for oil there?
No, I think I might have heard that one too. So they seem to be supportive with one caveat. Doe Lane, which is a public road, is an older road. I think it was last worked on in the 80s, according to some of the neighbors who I spoke with, and is not necessarily in the greatest condition. And their concern was that the construction traffic, not only to build the road but to build the homes, would be detrimental to the condition of Doe Lane. The Sewards, because they have this panhandle, have agreed that they won't use the public road, and I'm just sharing this because some of you may have heard from constituents as well, and would indeed use this 20-foot access that's high land that can be used to access the property for all the heavy construction traffic, which they're not required to do. They said that they would, and the neighbors appreciated that. So that was the only thing that we heard during the public hearing at the Planning Commission that was a concern. By and large, the neighbors, the few that were here, felt that they were not concerned at all about the change in zoning and the lot split. So again, it's a pretty straightforward request, and it is before you tonight for approval, or your consideration for approval.
Mr. O'Neill, is that a legal non-conforming lot now?
I would say it is, because it does not have the required road frontage for ag. They've got frontage on 2 roads, but they don't have the required number of front feet. So
One of the many sins of our grandfathers.
Yes, flag lots always have that.
Right. And we're going to see more of these than less of these over the next few years as these type of parcels break up.
So possibly to that end, this private road extension off of a public road would take a parcel that's currently non-conforming and potentially make it conforming, or it would have to in order to do the division.
Very good. Are there going to be a total of 2 parcels or 3?
That's their plan. Really, they have the ability to, as long as they have the road frontage, add potentially a 3rd parcel. By the time you net out the road acreage, it might be tough to get 4. So I think there's the way I look at it, there's a maximum of 3 potential lots here.
I'm very, very familiar with that parcel of land.
Yes.
That's one of the downfalls of not allowing some flexibility, because the cost of extending a private road, now they have to somehow recoup that. So it almost forces people to now build an additional home in order to pay for the cost of the roadway, instead of just allowing the split and allowing a driveway to come in.
Right.
And so there are 2 ways to look at it.
Well, and I'll tell you beyond that, and I don't want to have the conversation devolve, but there are many communities, townships in particular, we don't get road funding, who have said, we're not allowing private roads anymore. So that has become the trend, because we're not a road agency. It's really more of a headache for the staff here, because we're not geared up to be a road agency. So I'd be curious to know, kind of as time goes on, if more and more go that route. There hasn't been a push here yet, but it would not break my heart if we did away with private roads, but it would certainly then further increase the cost and the burden on the applicant. Certainly our private road standards mirror closely
Very close to the county.
the county road standards, but I'm not sure the county is allowing gravel roads any longer.
I don't believe so, not within a development. Splits, I think they still do a Class C road, but
I haven't looked into it, but that's another thing that we do at least offer the ability for residents to construct a private road.
and that being said, I might make a presentation to this board, and Sean and I might need to discuss it, because the benefits of going to a county road in subdivisions nowadays is actually more of a detriment than anything else, and I can explain that as we get into it. So
All right, well, do you have anything further to add, Mr. O'Neill?
I don't. Again, I really wish that all requests were this straightforward, but it's just, again, before you with recommendation from both the staff and planning commission for approval.
Very good. Any of the board members have any questions regarding this matter? Yes, Mr.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that we approve the change in rezoning from Ag to SF Suburban Farms for parcel number 12-21-201-004 as presented.
I have a motion, looking for support.
Support.
I have support from Mr. Lilly. Motion and support. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it.
Thank you so
You have your
much.
split. Welcome to the neighborhood, by the way.
Well, we live in the neighborhood. We live off of Sebring Drive.
Okay. Well, you're closer now.
Yes, we are.
Thank you. Item 9C, request from the library for Township to do a shared cost water main extension on Elizabeth Lake Road. Ms. Smith?
Mr. Supervisor, as liaison to the library, I just assisted them through the process to place their motion on the agenda for consideration tonight. I provided you with a letter from the library board, as well as was in our board packet tonight, and I believe there's a library board representative here to present.
So Glenn Russo here from the library. Not necessarily here to present. Here to answer questions, to go through it, because not everybody's seen the document. Basically, we have 2 parcels of property where the township has a piece of property and the library has a piece of property. Neither of which these properties have water, is in the form of a water main. The water main ends at Kroger, and it ends at the fabulously known as the Rehab Center, which I'm sure they would like us to call them by their name, but it's the Rehab Center. So we have a situation where we have a piece of property and we need to have water. It'd be a good thing to have. And the township ordinance calls for the water to actually be called what's a loop system. We can't just take the water from Kroger and bring it to our property. The water main has to go from our property, or from Kroger, all the way down to the rehab center. So it crosses over the newly purchased land by the township, increasing the value of the land once there's water on it. So we're looking at it from a perspective of the ordinance calls for a loop system, as I just described, if the distance is more than 600 feet, for which we are. And so we're saying that we're improving our property at the same time. The township property then becomes more valuable because it has water, not oil, but water. And who knows? It could be more valuable than oil in a few years anyways, at $10 a barrel. So from that perspective, tonight, I know some of you are looking at like, what's the cost? So our first estimate from our construction manager is based on $120 per linear foot. We talked to another estimator, and their estimate was $100. I'm sure we talked to 3 more people, and we'll have another number. But I think that gives us the size and scope. We're not here talking about sharing $20,000 of cost. That's not a, it's more the magnitude of $240,000. So from that perspective, I don't want to get fixed on the absolute number, but that's more to give you the size and scope of it. I believe as neighbors and in the process of improving the value of the property next door, whether you develop or for some reason you think some other person comes in and develops it, the value of the property is more escalated because of the improvement made. So we put forth, 3 or 4 different scenarios, and then after that letter was drafted and provided to you, I learned that the more official way from a special assessment district would be linear foot on the road, or at least that's what I'm told by yet another person. So to me, I think it's just a mathematical equation of how the cost should be shared, because it is an improvement to the property, and therefore you're gaining value, so there should be an improvement. I really don't know which special assessment linear foot, buildable acreage. I think we just need to come up with the mathematical formula that then gets applied to the actual dollar. As the memo states, the other issue is, do you want your engineering firm, do you guys, from a township, want to take the lead, or does it just roll under the fact that we're developing the property, and then our construction manager, who we're already paying to manage things, takes under that issue also. So if you have some questions to our request, I would be more than happy to have that, or any kind of dialogue or discussion. And most importantly, a resolution or a conclusion.
Any of the board members have any questions at this time? Mr. Lilly.
I do in particular, Rick. It seems like for several months now that this issue has been before the board, and the issue has always been, give me the money, give me the money, give me the money. And I think the position from the board and understanding our side of it is that we can give you the money, but there are certain qualifications that you must meet in order for the board to, and I'm going to speak for myself, not necessarily for the board, in order to obtain those funds. And from my perspective in particular, I believe that the township has presented an estimate of costs that I really feel strongly, in my whole background is building and development and commercial and residential, that the board has asked for bids to be taken so that we can truly nail down the amount of money that's going to be necessary to build this library. You've all been told we're going to have a 30,000 square foot library. Well, that may happen, it may not, depending on costs. I believed in Rick's concept that while we were progressing into this process of bonding and the library fulfilling their requirements as far as the site plan approval and actually getting these bids, and going to probably take at least another month or so to accomplish all that, I believed in Rick's concept to explore the fact that is there going to be some cooperation between the township and the library to look at how we could share costs. And this is exactly a typical example of what I feel that Rick was trying to accomplish, that when you get into this thing and you want to be all by yourself and the township's not ready to go with you, that there's been many cases of commercial development, and I'm going to say even with Meyer Development, had to do the same thing. They ended up running a sewer line from the Meyer clear down to Union Lake and Elizabeth Lake Road. Quite an expensive process, and I can say the same thing. Yep, it increased everybody's value along the route, but Myers paid for the whole thing. Kroger, all of those developers have extended water mains to their development at their expense. I'm really surprised that, the library board in the last month has taken the opportunity to discuss maybe some cost savings that they need to do to accomplish it. This is another typical example that I think is absolutely ridiculous to come to this board when the library will be granted bonds in the amount of $8.6 million, and we want the township to pay in addition to the 8.6. So I'm all in favor of this being part of a discussion down the road when the library really finds out through the bidding process of what this entire project that they have embarked on is going to cost them. I don't believe there's any concept or any chance that the library is going to want to participate in a joint township hall library combination. Again, my personal opinion, and like I say, I feel that this is may not be the only example that we're going to be facing when the bids actually go out and all of the requirements of the township, the Oakland County, all of those reviews come back that may add some additional expense to what has been anticipated. So I'm quite frankly surprised at the request and the push to keep this thing going forward. But again, I'm going to state that this township has a process to go through, and when we're done and the bids have been taken and we can look at the whole picture and move ahead, approve the bonds, am I willing to take under consideration what this request is.
Thank you, Mr. Lilly. Mr. Powell.
I certainly agree with you, Mr. Lilly. There are many, many examples of the first developer in pays for a great deal of the cost of utilities, and the neighbors then are able to partake of that, or there wouldn't even be a sanitary sewer there for the library if another developer hadn't extended it for them first. So I have had a very, very good meeting with the library part of the board, and I have to compliment the library board for having such excellent consultants. I really feel that you guys have some first-rate consultants, and in dealing with that board, we went over a number of opportunities to cut $1, $2, maybe even $3 million from the project without any change in the building itself from the library, and they were not entertained by the committee that was there, or the group that was there. And so I would not be ready to approve this at this time as well, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Roman.
Yeah. Guys, now that the library's made it clear that they want to go on their own with a separate building, to me that means the township is now starting over. We're now back to square one. We don't know exactly what we're going to do. We haven't gone out to the voters. We're looking at all options. One option being having commercial developments along that frontage, in which case those commercial developments would pay for sewer water lines on that frontage. So that's one of my concerns, and one reason that at this point I would not support contributing to the water line for the library. But there's another issue. Our voters went to the polls last August, and they approved a bond for a new library not to exceed $8.6 million. I feel that giving more taxpayer money in addition to the $8.6 million is basically circumventing those voters and going behind their back. And I don't feel comfortable supporting that, guys. That's all I had, Rick.
Thank you.
I think at this point in time, we need to have a further discussion. From the perspective of your comments about the 8.6, there is no budget overrun. There is $8.6 million, period. So any professor, any person that walks up here and says there's a budget overrun is completely not correct. Second of all, as you look at it from the perspective that you just stated, that you're giving the library money, I would counter that with, you are improving your property, the taxpayer property. The library has an alternative, and we will pursue it. And it will cost the taxpayer more money in the long run. From the perspective of, we will take an option to develop the property without the water line. We will spend $100,000. And we will put that money into a process that isn't the water line. You will not get increased value for the other part of the parcel, and we will have spent $100,000. We will secure our building with the $8.6 million. So if you don't want to participate, that's quite all right. But the taxpayers will lose in the long run. From the perspective of, if the value of the township parcel is improved because there is a water line, it would then be more valuable and the taxpayers would then get the benefit for that. The comment that the sewer line was put in for our benefit, if that was the case, then why is the sewer line a $100,000 tap fee? So it was put in there, but the first person didn't pay for it in totality. It's there, and as people come onto it, they're paying for it. So from that perspective, I don't necessarily, you guys are shaking your head no, so we don't have to pay a sewer tap fee, we just get to use it for free then.
That has nothing to do with the extension of that.
Mr. Powell can answer that question.
That has absolutely nothing to do with the extension of the water main. The water main was paid 100% by Meyer. You're paying for the use and the treatment of the water into Commerce Township. It has nothing to do with the cost of putting that sanitary sewer in the street.
And no cost to the upkeep.
If it fails, then we have to take care of it. That's correct. But
Right, so there's a cost to the upkeep.
the library did not pay a penny, and none of the residents in White Lake Township paid a penny to put that water, that sanitary sewer in.
Well, I just find it disappointing from all of the discussion about saving the taxpayer money, all of the fiduciary responsibility, all of the willingness to come together, and when we say there's a water line that for both parties to use to increase the value of one property and for the other people to use, that the first right out of the box is, oh my God, that's terrible. So I don't.
The first out of the box was this board asking you, as the library board, to please work with the township board and share some space in a building. That has been turned down absolutely categorically. Now, when there's an expense involved, now you want us to participate with you.
For value that you receive. For value you receive.
Unrealistic.
It's, okay.
Excuse me,
Fine.
Mr. Roman.
Glenn, last meeting, I made a statement that I would support a standalone library,
Yep, you did.
and I would support up to the maximum $8.6 million.
Good, thank you.
And I also qualified it, and I said you have to get a handle on your costs,
And this is the process.
and you have to follow all of the township ordinances.
And we will.
The water township ordinance, because you are within 200 feet of a water main, you don't have a choice. If you want water in your library, you will hook up to the water line. That's the way the ordinance reads, and that's what you have to follow. Thank you.
Very good. Any further?
Just a couple additional comments that I forgot about. It's really amazing how you can come to this board and expect the board to jump over hoops, and you've done that for several months now. And let me finish. I find it ironic that you even in your newsletter, you said whether you voted for the proposal or not, the voting process is being circumvented by a majority of the White Lake Township Board of Trustees. It is the duty of the trustees to implement the wishes of the voters, but so far they have not passed a resolution to issue the bonds to pay for the project that was approved by you, the voters. Then you go on to say, we don't have to issue the bonds if you make this comment that the board has said, we don't have to issue the bonds if we don't want to. I have a better idea. I don't care if the library has to close due to the lack of funds and many similar comments. All of these are just inflating the big problem of the board being the bad person, where the library has taken on a responsibility in budgeting and moving forward to do their own stuff. I also want to report to the general public that as of tonight, the library owes the township for salaries, benefits, and fees as of 9/30 of this month, $174,000 to reimburse. Now, in a meeting that we had today, I have to admit that I probably lost my cool a little bit with library staff in the meeting that we were in today. But I got to say, I take this very personally when you owe, and I am responsible as the clerk for the receipting of money to do that, that you would take at the library and vote that you're not going to pay this township until this bond issue does. That's really striking to me, and yet you come to us and ask for cooperation. And I've already laid out personally what I expect this library board to accomplish, and that's the bidding and all of those things to be done. And I don't feel bad from the township board perspective that they may have done what they have to do, but the township has a right to enforce its ordinance and its processes and to move forward. And I fully, as the clerk of this township, am going to abide by my part of the bargain. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Love. Any other comments from the board?
I have a few. I just want to, excuse me, clarify a few things that were said amongst the board. Terry mentioned that this board is asking for bids. Just Terry is asking for the bids. This board hasn't voted or decided on that process. Also, you know, they are here, and so instead of responding adversarial, they are here extending an olive branch, I believe, to work together and try to mesh in some kind of campus idea. Mr. Powell said that, excuse me, I have a little bit of a scratchy voice tonight, so I'm so sorry for clearing my throat. That saving dollar amounts was not entertained in that meeting. I too was in that meeting, and we're all there with open minds, and that just wasn't the case. Many options were entertained, and there's still work in progress of ways that can be saved money, or the building can be tweaked, or parking can be moved, and things like that. So that wasn't quite the outcome of that meeting. Next, in this memo, it's very specific. They're asking us to consider 3 possibilities of a percentage split. So I would like to at least give them the courtesy and respect to talk about each request that they asked. And in the bigger picture, they are approaching us to try to save both parties money. And I'm all for saving the taxpayers money. This is, excuse me again, there are ways to save money in this process, even though we are not going to move forward in a combined building, but there are ways to save money in a campus idea as where the boulevard goes, or where we pull in utilities and water mains and things like that. So instead of taking an adversarial approach at this, I'd like to respectfully go through their requests. And then after that, I'd also like to offer that perhaps we table this issue so that we can gather more information and information towards a positive outcome for both boards instead of just saying a flat out no. So.
I believe that you have the right, and anyone here, any organization or group within a township has the right to, you know, ask for information back and forth. And that's part of why we're here, and that's what it's all about.
Right.
Is this a flat out no? I don't think there's really, I won't say there's ever a flat out no, because I've been exposed to those a few in my life. But does it mean that there can't be some sort of symbiotic relationship developed between us? I think there's always room for that.
Absolutely.
Glenn. It's just a matter of sitting down and figuring it out.
Yeah.
So I would welcome conversation in regarding this matter, and I think we need to look into it. I would like to consult the township engineer first and foremost, I have not had an opportunity to do so.
Good.
And I put my utmost faith in them. Not that I don't know the other company, they're good, what I've seen, what their work, it looks good. But I would, as a supervisor, I need to consult our consultants, so to speak.
I would
And-
welcome a better number from them.
And I will sit down and have some conversation with them in the very near future regarding this matter. And that's about all I can add, and take all this under advisement at the moment.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Okay. Moving on to item, well,
We have the campus study plan. It's got two more.
we're gonna talk, we'll talk about that.
Isn't that part of what
We're
supposed to
gonna
get
talk
out?
about that in a few minutes, okay?
Okay,
We'll get there.
that's-
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay.
All right. The item D is going to be the first reading of the amendment to the fire code ordinance. To move to second. Terry?
Actually, if I can
I'm sorry.
intervene, I did get an email from John Holland on Monday asking to make one minor change. In front of you is a red line version of the entire ordinance so that you see the changes that are being proposed to conform with the 2015 version of the International Fire Code. On page 5 of that, which is within section 109.4, so the very top of the page has some bullets. After where it says Chapter 4, he's asked that we add, with the exception of section 401.8,
Exception of
With-
section,
with the exception of section 401.8, which deals with interference with fire department operations.
gotcha.
That would be the only change. With that amendment to the version in front of you, we would ask that you move this to second reading.
Very good. Thank you, Counselor. Appreciate that very much. I did peruse this. There are a lot of technical things of that nature, and of course, this does bring us up to the 2015 code. Any questions from the board? Mr. Powell?
And maybe Lisa can help me out. Although the majority of this ordinance revision is in black, as you said, it's been red bullet pointed for the changes. The other sections still state shall be amended to read as follows. And
So this is a little bit confusing because what's happening here is this ordinance adopts the 2015 International Fire Code.
Okay,
So it's this thick.
right.
So we've adopted that, and then if you look under section, page 2, section 18-25, we have changes in the code. So basically, everything after this section are the changes to the big 2015 code. That whole code applies as modified by this section. Does that make sense?
Okay, so let me see if I can't reword that. The modifications that are being requested in black are what we've already changed because it's a carryover from a previous version.
That's correct.
The red is only the changes that we're making to the entire NFPA.
That's, well, no. The black under section 1828 is all of the changes of the 2015 version, but the red is showing you the differences between the 2012 and 2015 versions.
Okay.
So this is the whole ordinance.
All right, and I understand that. Then on page 4, I had a question on section 108.3 shall be amended as follows, and I didn't quite understand the thinking of our fire department for the one member of the Board of Appeals has to be a professional with certain qualifications and cannot be an employee of White Lake Township. I didn't understand the reasoning for that.
And I'm sorry, I can't explain the reasoning behind that. I can tell you that there is a section 108.3 that lists qualifications in the International Fire Code.
Yes.
And this is how he wants to change it, to customize it essentially for White Lake. But I can't tell you why. I do know that there has been some discussions about trying to have the same Board of Appeals for building as fire, because he was having a hard time recruiting a Board of Appeals for fire, and there's already a Board of Appeals for building. And so he was looking for a way to mesh them. This could be the way, but I can't say for sure.
I believe that we've already adopted that. We've already merged the two boards in a previous action by this board. I'm pretty sure that we did.
Well, if the
But-
fire code had certain requirements that needed to be modified, it would have had to be done through this.
That I understand.
And so that could be what he was trying
Okay.
to do with this amendment. I'm sorry, but we will have a second reading, so I can get the answer for you. He called me today, indicated he couldn't be here.
Yes.
But we can definitely get the answer to you before adoption.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Very good. Okay, that being said, Mr. Roman, look like you have something to say.
No, do you want a motion to move to second reading?
Yes.
Okay, motion to move to second reading.
I have motion, looking for support.
Support?
Motion, support to move to second reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay. The old business, 10, Counselor Section Reading Amendment, minor, oh, this will be good for you guys, minor in possession.
So as you might recall, the legislature had amended the minor in possession law to make a first offense a civil infraction, as well as other changes. The effective date of that legislation was supposed to be January of 2018. So we had plenty of time to adopt it and go through the process. There was a subsequent amendment to that law that changed the effective date to October 20. And so, as you might recall, last month we scrambled. I threw something together. I added it to the agenda last minute. And you moved it from first reading to second reading so that our ordinances are consistent with state law. Well, our legislature just passed a new piece of legislation making it effective again January of 2018. So rather than adopt it and have an ordinance inconsistent with state law, I'm asking that you simply postpone second reading to the November 18, I know it's not the normal date, the November 21st Township Board meeting agenda. No, because it takes 30 days to be effective, so it'll be worth it.
Right. So that'd be right.
Yeah, I believe that works because it has to be, in order for it to be effective, after the Township Board adopts it, it has to be published, and then it's not effective for 30 days later, so I think it will line up pretty nicely with actual effective date.
What is the reason that we shouldn't do it tonight?
Because our ordinance would say it's a civil infraction when state law says it's a misdemeanor, and there's another separate piece of legislation that says you can't call something a civil infraction if state law calls it a misdemeanor.
Overriding, trying to
For
override
the,
state
for
law.
the public that's here, it says, any minor in possession goes directly to jail, doesn't pass go.
Yep.
And exactly, so-
And costs them more than $200.
It costs them more than $200, right?
Yeah,
They don't
exactly.
know what monopoly means, eh?
They're gonna find out.
Alcohol, minor in possession of alcohol.
Read the ordinance so some of the audience can hear.
It's rather involved,
long, but-
but I will,
Just make it simplistic.
Counselor, give a brief synopsis of what's going to happen if any one of these young people underage is caught with alcohol.
Well, they will be put through the criminal justice system, except that a first offense will no longer be a criminal offense. It will be a civil infraction. Judge can still order counseling, and there'll be fines attached.
Okay, and in turn, there'll be probably fines and court costs exceeding.
There will be fines and court costs, and obviously the penalty gets more severe if another one is picked up.
So in other words, whatever you do, mind your P's and Q's, because you and or your parents will be paying for this. And minor in possession is not something to be taken lightly, although I know that all of you have had your experiences in life. You have to remember that you have to be careful, because the choices that you make are gonna put you in a position that you are gonna have to live with for the rest of your life. Yes, you have a question?
I had some opportunities to read the ordinance as drafted, and my concerns about it in relationship to the new statute that was, will be enacted in January was there was some omissions with regards to, people who are in, minors who are in possession, who are at work. For example, if they worked at Kroger and were stocking, they're actually in possession of alcohol, and that was omitted from the ordinance, that would not be considered a violation.
Correct.
In addition to, when do you notify the parents of a minor? And that was omitted from the ordinance. I'm not sure if that was intentionally omitted or what the case may be, but there were some things that were omitted from the ordinance that are in the state statute that might need to be reconsidered.
We're still bound by the state statute, so it's not necessary to, for example, there's a lot about probation that I've omitted as well. So a lot of stuff that we're obviously going to be bound by, I just didn't bother putting it in the ordinance. It wasn't in our ordinance previous to this one either. But the police department is well aware of state law, and if they write a ticket and it shouldn't be written, trust me, they'll get challenged on it, and they wouldn't be able to move forward.
But thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate that.
All right, so we, yes, Mr. Lilly.
I'd just like to make a motion, if that's all right, if there's no other discussion.
Go
I'd like
ahead.
to make a motion to table the second reading of the amendment to the minor in possession ordinance till the November 21st board meeting.
I have a motion, looking for support.
Support.
I have support from Andrew Voorhees. Motion, support. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Thank you. 10B, status of Civic Center Consulting Project. Mr. O'Neill.
Well, I thought the invite was here. Okay. Yes, tomorrow night, and this looks sort of like the invite that was mailed out. You'll see that the Ideas and Concepts community presentation is from 7 to 9 p.m. at Lakeland High School, again in the auditorium. The committee has seen, I believe, what's very nearly the finished product of what I guess will be presented to the public tomorrow night. And it not only will they discuss some of the survey results, but they'll also show what they call pocket schemes, different layouts of things, arrangements of buildings, things like that, just as food for thought. And I was told today that there'll be a survey, which I'm not exactly, unfortunately, sure of the exact format, but it'll be a brief survey trying to, I guess, gather and capture feedback after the presentation, and they'll go over that tomorrow night, and it'll be posted to our website as soon as we get it. We don't have it yet. We're supposed to get it tomorrow, so hopefully when we're all sitting at Lakeland tomorrow night, the survey will be on our website and be functioning. So yet another survey. Hopefully we'll have strong feedback and participation, stronger than the less than 300, I think, that we received the first time around, which is unfortunate, but
We received 334.
was it? Okay. So hopefully stronger than 334 in a community of almost 31,000. So we'll see. I'm looking forward to kind of them going through some of this similar format. Hopefully everyone who was there last time can make it, and many more people than were there previously. So the next meeting after that, then, just for the record, is November 8th, and that is again to cover draft concepts, as you can see, and that'll be at Lakeland High School in the well, it says the Auxiliary Cafe, but I believe it'll be in the cafe from 7 to 9 p.m. And we'll update on that as that gets near. We'll try to post and share some more information. I know the police department updated their page tonight, and we've got a lot of followers, so hopefully the community is aware and will attend tomorrow night.
Very good.
Sir, are there going to be any open mics? Are there going to be any question and answer period at all tomorrow night?
No, I asked them about that today, and they said it'll be a similar format where they'll present, and obviously afterward there was some conversation and discussion. I think that'll be similar. I think they're going to bring a couple computers to help people through the survey, but I don't think it'll be quite like it was last time. And if anyone needs assistance, certainly we'll work with them after that to get them pointed in the right direction so they know where to find this information and where to participate in the survey. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Well, I would urge everyone out there that is watching, if you have an opportunity tomorrow night, it would be nice if you could join us at Lakeland High School. We'd like to see more of a turnout because, in particular for your younger people, in case you're curious about this, because, 10, 20 years from now, some of us are going to be worm food, but you guys will be around, okay? And it's your community that we are trying to forge. So the decisions that have to be made, it's reality. It's decisions that we're making today will affect you tomorrow. So I would strongly recommend you get out there, get involved, and find out what's going on. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to interject. That's what's important. Oh, yes, you have a question?
Are we going to hear the results of those 334 surveys that we did?
I believe that some of that information is going to be revealed in in that report tomorrow.
that's their plan, yes.
And perhaps if there's not a question and answer period, nobody's really interested in going and just listening to the news.
Well, they have their way of doing this, and these people have done these types of things before. So we're relying on them and their expertise to gather data and then relay that data to us. And there are opportunities to speak to these individuals after each individual meeting. They are out in the lobby, and they are seeking input from individuals to walk up to them, ask them questions and things of that nature. So, okay, thank you, Mr. O'Neill, for that information. Moving on to item 11, trustee comments. Ms. Smith?
Okay, I'll just kind of piggyback a little bit onto the Civic Center. Again, it's tomorrow night at Lakeland at 7 p.m. And how it's going to work, unfortunately, is there isn't going to be an open mic. They've taken the input from the surveys and compiled 3 options, and that's what will be presented tomorrow night. Then an additional survey that I'm told is going to be more digital, more picture-based, a little bit easier for residents to get through. We'll start either tomorrow night or Thursday morning at the latest. It's really important that you take that survey right away because they need time to compile. So the current survey is still open, but they're really not taking that input in if you just took the survey like yesterday or today. So the second survey, the same thing. They're going to kind of cut off input about a week before November 8th, the last presentation. The survey technically will still be open, but they're going to unfortunately have to disregard those input surveys because they just don't have time to fit it all in and then present again to our residents on November 8th. So it was very disheartening that only 334 residents participated in the survey for a $45,000 consultant. So I sure hope that some more participation takes place as we move forward. They will be available in the lobby afterwards for questions if anyone is interested, and it will be live streamed if you can't make it. So I'll back up a little bit on some community updates. The library board will meet again for their regular meeting on October 25th at 6:45 p.m. and that will be in the lower level of the library as usual. The dates again for Lakeland are tomorrow at 7 p.m. and November 8th at 7 p.m. Our next steering committee, although it's not open to the public, we'll be meeting October 24th. Some fun things are going on in the community. The Fist Farm, I want to give them a little bit of plug. They have their trunk and treat and they're hunting, and I'm sure Andrea can talk a little bit more about it as well. It's a fun night. It's trunk and treat. The Parks and Rec put on a movie. There's a Scarecrow Contest that's new this year. The community is really trying to plan some fun things for everybody, so I hope everybody can join us there. And then the next thing that will be coming up is the Community Unity Breakfast at November 9th from 7:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. It'll be at Independence Village. The tickets are $9. I see a few of the committee members here tonight, so thank you for your work on that. This is open to all of the public. You can RSVP by email at communityunitybreakfast@gmail.com. It's easy to remember, and there'll be some flyers around the community. This is a chance to network for you put names and faces together for our organizations and clubs in our community, to get a chance to socialize with our community leaders. And then we also recognize many employees or organizations that have gone the extra mile. And that's, I think, really important that people get recognized when they work hard in our community. So I hope you all join us. It's $8. It's very inexpensive. It's not a fundraiser. It just goes to cover your breakfast that morning, and it'll just be about an hour. The next November 9th, 7:30 to 9 a.m. at Independence Village.
The website.
Oh, there's an email if you'd like to ask questions. It's communityunitybreakfast@gmail. And then lastly, believe it or not, it's time to think about Christmas. And the tree lighting this year will be at Fisk Farm December 1st, Friday, December 1st, from 6 to 8 p.m. And this year we're trying something a little bit new that gives some more opportunity for people to be involved. We're going to add an event, a tree walk. So any resident, business, or organization can donate a tree this year. Please keep it under 6 foot. You may take that tree back home with you when the weekend is over. Would like to leave it for the Historical Society's event on Sunday. Or you can donate it, and we will find a needy family through the police department or Goodfellows that would enjoy your Christmas tree that season. So that is new this year, and if you would like to participate, please go to the library website. There's information there. I hope it will be on the Township website. And some more information will be around town again. We put out posters and flyers, go home with the kids at school and things like that. We need help that night. It's a mighty committee of 5, including myself. So if you can help that night at all, we would really appreciate it. There's a lot of setup to do, and then we just need all hands on deck to manage each activity. So if you're interested in helping, you can contact myself. You can talk to Mr. Greg Broney is here tonight on the committee as well. Larry at the library. All of us are easily reached, and we would love some help the night of the event. As I mentioned, I'm half tempted to make it a motion for next meeting because I've asked so many times for us to put community events on our marquee. So I hope that the survey will get on the marquee eventually. We paid a lot of money for the consulting, and I want to make sure that residents know about it. I hope that the tree lighting event and all of our community events are able to get on the Township website and our marquee. Lastly, I just want to kind of just reiterate one more time. I know there's some confusion in the community about this process with the consulting. It's not your typical consulting process. It's not going to give us a concrete answer. There's unfortunately, I believe there should have been a good old-fashioned town hall on this topic where you can give your input. So I'm sorry that that's not the case. 3 options will be presented. Nothing, this company is not going to tell us this one is the best one. Those will come back to the steering committee, and they'll come back to this board. They don't get into cost saving. They don't get into dollars. They get into more of planning the area. So it's not what you think of a typical consulting process. I know a lot of people have contacted me and are very confused on that. So if you'd like to reach out to me again, I'll try to help you explain it, and I really encourage you to come tomorrow night and the next night so that you can understand. And I think that's about it. So if anyone is looking for further information on these great community events that we have coming up, please catch me after the meeting so I can share it with you again. Thanks.
Thank you, Liz. Andrea?
I just want to thank the fire department for having a great open house on October 8th. As we all know, October is National Fire Prevention Month. So you could have anywhere from free hot dogs to rides on the fire truck that was at Meyer, to spraying the hoses, to climbing on the trucks, to having a bandage with blood on it that was put on your arm from some of the firefighters. They would put like a fake wound on your arm. I think that's personally kind of fun. And we even saw a marriage proposal during one of the demolitions of the vehicle. They flipped over a hood and it was, "Can you marry me?" I don't know who the fire paid on call was. But I'm just glad my husband didn't propose to me that way. To my knowledge, yes. And regarding Liz's comments, it is absolutely this Saturday, 6 p.m. is the trunk or treat outside the farm. Like Liz said, there's absolutely a Scarecrow contest. And we are also showing a movie, to my knowledge, as being part of Parks and Rec as of last Wednesday. It hadn't been picked yet, Sean. Do you know if it's been picked yet?
I believe it was picked in order today. It involves Don Knotts and some ghost.
Ghost and Mr. Chicken?
Maybe the ghost of Mr. Chicken. Thank
Okay.
you.
Classic.
I'm on a lot of cold medicine.
No, you're good. I had no
But
idea.
yeah, I think it was. It's being shipped to us today. It was $7. So we managed.
Charge Parks and Rec for that?
We did.
Yep.
Yes.
I'll give you $7 after.
Yeah.
If you can come dressed, I have to come up with a new outfit. I can't be Jason Voorhees like I was last year.
It's your cousin, right?
So.
Right, there's a costume contest as
Oh
well.
yeah, thank you. I was thinking that. So yeah, I'll be there. So we have to figure out what I'm gonna be.
Andrew and I dress up, so you'll have to figure out who we are.
You'll be the cute one. I'll be the warm one in clothes. And yes, you will. That's all I have.
Okay, Mr. Lilly.
Thanks, Rick. I just, one thing I want to mention before I forget, and that's I believe the information I run across that Rick Fisher, who is supposedly our fire hose officer, and maybe you can help me on this, has co-opted a grant with Springfield Township, and from what I understand has brought about $10,000 to the township for the purchase of new fire hose. And I don't know whether it was 10 that we got or 10 that was...
I think we're getting 10,000
I
feet.
think that was what I read, what I anticipated, but I'd like to take a moment just to thank Rick for...
Yep,
you know,
that was great to save
grants
the
are not,
township a bunch of money.
Easy to obtain, and
Yeah.
that's a lot of money. I spoke my piece when we discussed the library thing, and I just want everybody to know that my honesty and my integrity are important to me. And as long as I sit as a clerk of the township, I will continue to be an advocate that our policies are important to us, and will attempt to the best of my ability to see that those are followed through. And once they're followed, then I think that makes good decision making on behalf of the board members to do. So that's all I have to say at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Lilly. Mr. Powell.
Certainly, and I want to assure the public and certainly the library board that I'm in total favor of the library, and will do everything I can to assist them. However, I'd very much like it to be a reciprocating type communication. I'd really like the library board to work with us instead of just waiting until they need something from us. And so it really needs to be a two-way street. In that respect, the library board did get me a copy of the projected new budget for the operating millage, or for the operating of the library, and I thank them very much for that. I have some questions on it, and maybe we can meet regarding it. It doesn't show that there's any increase in dollar amounts for any of the programs, no additional amount for books, no additional amount for really anything except for just the building itself. And so I have some questions on why the programs aren't showing any increase in dollar amounts. And then I asked, maybe because I'm not a library expert, I went to Commerce Township, who has a similar size building, and they sent me their operating budget, and their budget is substantially higher than the budget that the library is projecting, and so that may be an issue that the library board may want to check on as well. I also am I also received a notification or a worksheet from the bond attorney, and it doesn't have an item in here that I'd be certainly willing to discuss of eliminating or reducing, our ordinance requires a 7% administration fee for the issuance of bonds and the collection of bonding, and so that is not included in here. And
Just
so,
for SAPs.
but it's also for selling of bonds, and I looked at the ordinance
You
as
sure?
well. I think so.
I don't-
So, in any event, certainly we ought to think about waiving that if we can, to assist the library.
I have to look at that.
And then certainly, several of us are wearing pink, and I wanted to certainly recognize the fact that this is a month in which we need to pay attention to that breast cancer and cancer in all of us that we can get. I certainly remember there are a lot of tears when I came home and announced to my wife that I had cancer, and so that C words is fairly traumatic. So, thank you.
And thanks to Carol for all the reminders.
Yes, absolutely right.
I must have gotten 5 emails. Thanks, Carol.
Yes.
Mr. Roman,
Can I go first?
is trustee comments.
Denise had her hand up, just so you.
Okay.
So, I went ahead and set up a meeting that we had today, Terry and I, with Denise and the treasurer from the library, Joe Fennell. And our whole goal was just to meet and make sure that we keep the train on the tracks and the process. My goal is to make this process work for both sides. It can't be one-sided, and so by us meeting every couple of weeks at least, you know, I think it's a good thing. Two of the concerns that came up today from the library's end, one was bond discount, and I think we can learn a little bit more about it, but that's a fee that the underwriters charge. And then I think their biggest issue right now that we need to work on is the timing of the resolution. And the library's concern is that the resolution is approved before they go out to bid. And their reasoning is that way those that do bid on the bonds have a better assurance that this bond is actually going to get funded. So I'm gonna talk to Paul next week when he's back and just see what his suggestion might be so that we can make this resolution work for both sides. Our municipal advisor did advise that we get sealed bids. The library go out and get sealed bids before the actual bonds are released. And that is on the timeline. We kind of went over the timeline today and the cost estimate. That's all I had, Rick.
Okay, very good.
Mr. Supervisor, I did forget one thing, and I just want to give the library some clarity before they leave. When we were discussing their motion, or their agenda item 9C, I suggested that perhaps we table it, and then you said you'd take it under advisory, and no action was taken, and they had very specific requests. So I just want to make sure they leave here
Well, they'll have
feeling
some
like,
conversation
is
very
it tabled
shortly.
for next month? Is it under
Well,
advisory
this'll
for
be-
undetermined
we'll-
amount of time?
There'll be some conversation probably very shortly here.
Okay, that still doesn't give them.
I will tell you it will
Answer.
happen before the next meeting.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Ms. Stefanik.
I wasn't planning on talking again, but Mike, I have to clarify a few things for
Sure.
you. Not Mike Roman, Mike.
Oh, excuse me.
You mentioned that you would hope that we would take the initiative to meet with you before we need something,
Not the initiative, but serious consideration of alternatives.
which we did. You and I, did I not call you and ask you when you would like to meet?
Oh, absolutely.
With our architect? We did that.
Absolutely,
Okay.
and I appreciated that.
And also, I just want to point out that the library staff, as well as myself, have been very active in the city study. You might not know that, Sean more so than me, because it's not my job, but Sean, have I been helping you?
Yes, you have. You've been very involved, and I appreciate it.
Okay, so it's not like we haven't been working.
Communication is improved.
Yes, good,
Right.
yes.
Everyone can agree to that.
All right. And then you mentioned the programming, we didn't have an increase in programming or books. Programming, we already have a very robust programming schedule. And yes, we will have more programs, but they most likely won't cost more. Denise is our programmer extraordinaire. She gets grants for us. It is just phenomenal what we can do with the budget that we have. As far as the books, many of you know, and we have some friends here, that we have a book sale, and most of the time we have a lot of our books that we have to weed in order to weed meaning take out of the collection to make room for more books. So, bottom line is we won't have to sell those books. They will be going on our shelf in a normal process where we will just have a nice collection without the need of having a bigger budget. Is it? Okay. In the meantime, for the next year or two, what we hope to do is to store some of our books as we weed them out and make room for the new books that we buy, is we're going to store them and have them available for when the new library opens. So we'll have a nice collection, it won't be bare, it'll be just right.
Okay.
And Commerce Library, yes, they have most libraries have a better budget than we do. They do. Most of them have twice. West Bloomington has 5 times. We do a really good job on our budget. We're frugal and we do things smart. Commerce has money, their budget, their millage was set up to build that library. And it originally was supposed to be built 10 years ago. They decided to wait until they had a pot of money to build the library. So they were in that country club for a while. It is a nice library. They do have a bigger budget now. They do. But that's why they had a bigger budget. And the public has not, they're allowing them to have it, and they're going to have a very, very nice library because of it.
Yeah, just compare the
I
utilities. You have a price of $5,000 for gas, and their price is $35,000 for the equivalent size building. And so, I'm just suggesting you look at their budget. That's all.
I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Okay.
Mike Roman,
Yes, sir.
do the rest of your board members know that the list of actions have really no items assigned to the library for the sale of the bonds? I mean, there's been a lot of discussion about what we have to do, meaning we, the library, but there's not one single line item that the participant is the library. So when
I'm not sure what document you're referring to,
the
Glenn.
one that the finance
Is that
committee put out.
from Benzinski?
Yeah.
Okay.
So right now, that is the only roadmap, those are the only identified items from the township, from the advisors,
Okay.
that are required. So that is the only
Except for the bids.
guiding light we
have to bid it
have.
out. That's there.
And
Glenn,
there is nothing to be had.
Okay, if you can do me a favor, if you got a copy of this
I
now.
do.
This is proposed. That's why it's called proposed, for us all to review it.
Yeah.
Can you look at it, whatever additions or changes that you would recommend, can you get those to us? Email those to us, and we'll look at them. We'll get with Benzinski.
So you're wanting me to make myself responsible for something? I mean, who does that?
No.
Yeah, if you could
We got it.
shoot us off an email for whatever.
Okay, all right, we're in trustee comments, let's get back to what we're doing. Okay,
Yes, sir.
Thank you. We approach them and they'll try to work out best we can. Okay, now it's my turn at the end. First of all, again, thank you very much for coming tonight. Participation is what makes these meetings work, and sometimes not, but nonetheless, it is good to have the participation. It is Breast Cancer Awareness. We've all been touched by it, something we all need to be aware of, cancer in every way, shape, and form. And yes, again, Carol, thank you for reminding us all and being our little conscious in the background. There's been a lot of going on back and forth on this. I do believe we are moving in a forward direction. It may be, some people think a straight line, others might think it's a zigzag, but nonetheless, we're still going forward. So this will all iron itself out, and we'll see what the outcome will ultimately be. The building will need to be built with $8.6 million, because that is what the public has approved. And we will take it from that point forward and try to be as cooperative as we possibly can with the information at hand, and go from there. And with that, I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session.
You have a question if you're taking questions.
I just was made aware that there's not a costume contest this year. They're not doing it.
Okay.
So just
Okay.
FYI.
Thanks.
Just was made aware.
Thank you. Okay.
I know, that's
Okay.
my wrong. Like that, I address it.
I'd like to make a motion to go into enter closed session, attorney-client privilege communication in accordance with MCL 15.268H. Roll call vote, please.
I'll support your motion.
The motion, thank you. I'd like to make a vote.
Mike Powell,
Yes.
Andrea Voorhees,
Yes.
Liz Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Lilly votes yes, Mr. Roman,
Yes.
Mr. Kowal.
Yes. That will move into executive session. We'll take a, yes, sir.
Before we move into executive session, I just want to let you know all again that there are going to be the possibility of 3 items to be discussed after we return.
Anybody wants to come back in?
I just want to make that transparent, so.
Well, we put it on the agenda, so it needs to happen.
I suggest we meet somewhere outside, because he's gonna take a long
Go in
time
my
to take
office.
the computer to.
What is the time span of going back in?
15, 20 minutes, maybe? I don't know.
15, 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Depends how many questions get asked. Okay.
Do that.
My office. to go back into general session.
I'll go support.
Support, roll call vote.
You don't need one.
Oh, that's right, we don't need one to go out of, we just need to go into. I beg your pardon, getting tired. I am looking for support for that motion.
I did.
You got
Okay,
support?
did. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, ayes have it. Back in general session. Thank you. Okay. Now,
Mr. Supervisor, if I may, that there's a particular order that those items need to go in. The first agreement will be the tentative agreement to be motioned. The second one will be the non-union employee and elected official wage resolution, and the third one will be the policy and procedure amendments.
thank you. Ms. DeRocher, would you care to give us a quick briefing on this?
The MAPE Union, the Michigan Association of Public Employees, have voted and agreed to the tentative agreement on September 25th, 2017. I'd like you to consider ratifying the contract.
Thank you. And they were, at their request, they wanted us to have it at this meeting, correct?
Absolutely, yes. I
Okay.
apologize for the late notice. The union did not ratify the contract until last Wednesday after the agendas were prepared for the meeting.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Any questions by any of the board members at this time? Yes, Mr. Lilly.
I'll make a motion to approve the tentative agreement dated September 25th, 2017 for a 3-year agreement for the union employees.
Very good. I have a motion. Looking for support.
Support.
I have a motion support by Andrea. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item A passes. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to, for the non-union employee and elected official wage resolution, Resolution 17040.
Okay, I have a motion. Looking for support.
Support?
A motion support by Mr. Roman. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to, for policy and procedure amendments to the policy and procedure manual to coincide with the union contract.
With the MAPE contract. Thank you. I have a motion. Looking for support.
Support.
Support by Mr. Powell. All in favor?
Aye.
Let's have it. Thank you. Okay. That, Mr. Clerk.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Support?
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned.